Growing up, I always loved the TV shows that followed a certain formula. Introduce the problem, good guy faces against the problem, good guy comes up with an out-of-the-box way to solve the problem that, while it seems theoretically possible, is doubtful if it would actually work. This formula was in all my favorites. MacGyver, A-Team, Hogan's Heroes, even Jack Sparrow. When I first heard some of the stories that I'm about to share with you, I was hit with a wave of nostalgia. It was always, okay, that's clever and funny, but no way would that work. Except these stories are real, and not only that, but the man who came up with them rose to become a baron of whiskey as a result. Behind every bottle is hundreds of stories. Every step starting from growing grain until it reaches your glass, this spirit is collecting experiences and stories that I would love to tell you. It's my goal to sift through these stories, find the most meaningful, and bring them forward to your attention. This isn't another whiskey review channel or show, this is pure storytelling. I won't analyze every detailed tasting note of the spirit in the bottle. Instead, I'll dive into the details of the spirit behind the bottle. And this is the spirit of Buchanan. It's the year 1879. The first artificial ice rink in North America opens in Madison Square, New York. Milk is sold in a glass bottle for the first time in America. The Anglo-Zulu War is ongoing, and a 30-year-old James Buchanan is moving to London as an agent for Charles McKinley & Co., a company that blends and sells whiskey, the same whiskey that would eventually travel with Shackleton. But that's a different story. He had worked since he was 14, putting in overtime and extra effort for no increase in pay, as he knew the experience would pay off eventually. Working for years in the shipping industry and later as a grain merchant. With this past experience and an overwhelming work ethic, he did quite well in London. So well that when he returned to Scotland, he went to the company J&J Ansell, one of the most successful and impressive whiskey firms at the time, and asked to be a partner in the firm. Which they assumed was a joke and denied him the partnership. Not letting that stand in his way, Buchanan elected to return to London in 1884 and set up his own firm, James Buchanan & Co. He had little to no starting capital, and London was just starting to get a taste for Scotch. Not a problem. He called on a friend in Glasgow and got a hold of a stock of whiskey and set about creating a blend that would be light enough for the palate of his market, and that would remain consistent both in quality and flavor. He created his blend, bottled it, and added a white label with the name Buchanan in black font. Now, he just had to sell it. His marketing schemes can only be described as legendary. He of course knew which establishments did not currently carry his whiskey, so he came up with creative ways to convince them, such as going to a fancy hotel along with 11 friends, all dressed in their best suits. And after they attempted to order his own whiskey, and of course hearing that they do not carry it, the small group all scoffed and made remarks about how unbelievable that was, then stormed out. After thinking they had potentially missed out on a large sale to a group of fine and wealthy gentlemen, the hotel rushed to place an order, not wanting to miss out again. When selecting an accountant for his firm, Buchanan found a man named Mr. Newsom Smith, who also happened to be the chairman of the United Music Halls Company, which owned most of the theaters in London. Naturally, he gained the contract for the music halls through Mr. Smith. Another time, he made a point of dining every single night at a specific hotel restaurant, and after 4 months, he had become friends with the owner, who eventually found out that Buchanan sold whiskey and was surprised that his friend had never tried to sell it to him. and placed an order immediately. He would receive another large order from a widowed man who was very well established in the beverage industry. After Buchanan graciously took his 2 daughters that had returned from a convent school to the Cinderella dances offered by a Burns club that he was a member of. The 2 girls were delighted with him, and the father showed his appreciation by ordering 5,000 gallons of whiskey. As his whiskey grew in reputation, it gained the nickname Black and White for its white label with black text on a black bottle. And Buchanan gained a reputation as well. He was always well-dressed, well-mannered, and was famous for driving a buggy with red spoked wheels and a black pony. Within his first year, he was awarded a contract for the House of Commons. This popularity was also due to the quality of the whiskey. In 1889, it was awarded the gold medal in the Paris exhibition for the category of blended Scotch. It would continue to grow, and in 1895, he was ready to start exporting it to the rest of the world. So Buchanan took off, traveling the world finding people that he deemed trustworthy to appoint as his agents for the brand. Buchanan would buy an old distillery, the Black Swan, for £87,000. A distillery that during riots in 1780 had been the home to a tragic event where the mob had smashed open casks and was greedily drinking the free-flowing spirit, not noticing that it had caught on fire. Many would die from drinking the burning alcohol, and more would die from the fire and the smoke. This tragedy had made the distillery more of a historic landmark, and when Buchanan told his solicitor, a sort of real estate agent, that he intended to buy it and rebuild it into an office space for his firm, the solicitor responded, "Good God, you cannot do that." But in 24 hours, the deal was made. The building was not only turned into the office space, but also added distinction and honored the tragedy that had taken place there. The same year, another set of larger-than-life characters in the whiskey business, Walter and Robert Pattison, caused an event that would later be known as the Pattison Crash. The brothers were known for leading an exceedingly extravagant lifestyle, and were one of the largest whiskey brands at the time. Their campaigns were so over the top that for one publicity stunt, they gave away 500 trained parrots that were taught the phrases, "Drink Pattison's whiskey. Pattison's whiskey is the best." However, their shady business practices would catch up with them. When their firm declared bankruptcy, it was found that they had defaulted on several loans already. They had inflated their profits by poor accounting practices and were blending small amounts of good whiskey into the cheapest they could find while calling it fine old Glenlivet. The 2 were tried and found guilty on 4 counts of fraud and embezzlement. After a short hour-and-a-half trial, both would face jail time for their crimes. A syndicate was formed to take hold of the Pattisons' remaining whiskey stockpile in Scotland. The Scottish banks that had invested in Pattisons wanted an evaluation of the stock for its current value, and the Scottish syndicate approached Buchanan due to his good business practices and integrity. Buchanan refused, saying, "Get someone in Scotland to do the job." But days later, the syndicate returned. They told him that the banks would only trust him to make the evaluation, and that he could name his fee. So he said a large number and went to make his evaluation. The failure of the Pattisons would be inescapable, though, and the syndicate would fail, but they still offered to pay Buchanan his large number. Buchanan refused the payment, saying to instead write a check to the Wine and Spirits Benevolent Association for £50. valued today at over $8,150. This was a charity that helped to provide physical, emotional, and financial help to workers and their families in the beverage industry. During all of this, and even the busiest times, Buchanan had another hobby that he enjoyed: dogs. He would attend numerous dog shows. Now, this is where my research has been next to impossible, because there is also a former U.S. president named James Buchanan who also owned multiple dogs, and there are overwhelmingly more articles about the President Buchanan's dogs than are Buchanan's. The best source that I found claims that he had 3 dogs, all Highland Terriers, and that he commissioned a well-known artist to create a picture of them for his whiskey. The advertisement was very successful, and dogs have remained a large part of the marketing for the whiskey. Now, what gets confusing is that every piece of advertising for Buchanan's that I have been able to find pictures of only shows 2 dogs, a black and a white Highland Terrier. So it is entirely likely that there were 3 originally, but this was changed to 2 to match the black and white whiskey's name. Buchanan continued to work hard and smart, navigating his company through unprecedented events. He had founded a rifle club, aptly named the Buchanan Rifle Club, and when World War I broke out, 454 men from the club volunteered, all already trained marksmen with rifles. And Buchanan himself proved to be more than generous, as he did all he could to improve the lives of the soldiers and increase the efficient conduct of war. For all of his services, he would even receive the title of baronet. After the war, the U.S. entered Prohibition. The liquor industry was again shaken, but Buchanan saw his company through those troubling times with the same grace and confidence that the company had been built upon. Today, Buchanan's whiskey is still a prevalent brand that produces blended Scotch. And that's where this story comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I do. The charity that Buchanan had his earnings donated to for helping with the Patterson crash still exists, and still helps those working in the beverage industry in the UK. If you are at all inclined, I will have the link for more information and donations in the show description. Also in the show description is a link to my mailing list. It's the best way to know when a new episode is released. Now, I think I'm going to spend some time relaxing with my dog and a nice glass of scotch in hand. Next time on The Spirit of, we set sail in the Caribbean, following the stories of a legendary privateer. There's daring fights, witty escapes, riches to plunder, and an alternative to whiskey. I'll see you there.